Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. .22, so we need the hole for 22. Seriously, okay. And that is not right. I see how it works. Okay. Okay, it's 20 until we get to there, and then we got to flip it over. And there's 22. So you have the screw in the hole marked with the number for your pinion, and then from there you put the second screw into whatever hole is opposite. Perfect. 2 10s in from below. That's going to spread around just fine. What I need to do is move this pinion outward a little bit, because this spacer I have makes the motor axle a little short. There we go. Just give that another tightening. Okay. Okay, now something to be careful about. I built a few of these. Do not put a screw in here. That is a thread hole that you're going to thread something into later. Here, 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 and here. Those are the 4 screws we need to put in, and just like everything else so far, they are M3 by 10 millimeters. Excellent. B2s. This is our B tab number 2. These are for our body mounts, or excuse me, these are our battery mounts for the battery trays strap that goes across. Now, don't be alarmed that there are a lot of parts left on these trees that you're not going to use. For example, these arms with the large aperture on them, and these arms right here are probably not going to be used. 17 might get used, but I doubt it. I don't think any of those arms are going to get used. They're going to be replaced by higher end parts and connecting turnbuckles with U-joints or ball studs. Excuse me. So it's pretty obvious which direction these go. So that's everything on page 7. Okay, page 8, this is where we're getting into the new suspension arms and the mounting bushings and everything that goes with that. Okay, so I kind of stepped ahead on this stuff. Basically, I just unbagged a lot of stuff from the B bag. It looks like one of these, a little bigger. And trimmed off the various plastic parts for the front suspension. I haven't taken the pills off yet, and just kind of organized everything so it's easy to get to. There's a lot of small parts, and so this is going to be interesting to put together. Anyway, let's get rolling. So first we're doing the fronts. It would help if I made a little more room here. Okay, so the fronts are going to require 2 of these long barrels here. I believe these are the ones. Compare them up here. Yep, looks like. Those are these, the MB23s, and then we need a pair of 0.5 millimeter spacers, like 2 of these for each side. And then we're going to need 2 of these axles here, or swing arm pivots. They just call them shafts. And just to confirm the size, that's it right there. So then we're going to need 2 3 millimeter I have to get out the calipers. This is going to be hard for anybody who doesn't have a caliper. Okay, so we need 2 1s and 2.5s. Those are 2 more 1s. I'm guessing these silver ones might be the 0.5s. Yep. So 2 of the 1mm blues. See, 5.5 by 1, 5.5 by 0.5. And then we need 2 of the 3 by 0.7s, and that's interesting that they're not using 5.5s like everything else here. 5.5 by 3mm. That's 2. That's 3. And another 3. So let's kind of start lining stuff up here. We need 1 of these, 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 1 of these. And then on the opposite side of the arm, .7s. That's a 1.5. Let's check these over here. Those are our 0.7s. So you're going to need 1 of those and 1 of those. And we're going to need this piece to cap off the front right there. And then we need to find B8, which should be easy to find. Now, don't be alarmed that you have 2 of these. You're only going to need 1, so think of it as a free spare. Okay, that's 7. This is 8. Oh, I've got like a little gnat flying around in here. It's really pestering me. Any other pieces we need? Nope. Okay, now let's check fit. Those fit really nicely. There's no need for any reaming on those. Couldn't hurt to just go once through to clear off any molding flash along the edge. Perfect. Okay, now there's something else we need to do on these. And that's this piece here. So let's just kind of lay these out. Like that. And it's this slot here. We need a pair of these guys here. We need a couple of 3mm bushings. That's 2. That's 3. And 3. And we need 2 ball studs. Those are MB11s, which are these guys here. And then we need 2 long grub screws. That's those 2. Now there's something else that I want to do while I'm here, and that's these guys. I have these itty bitty screws, which are probably 1.5 mil, and they are. And I'm just going to go ahead and put them into their hexes, so I don't have to worry about losing these little screws somewhere along the way. Okay, don't have to worry about that. So these guys slide down like so, one on each side. Make sure you're doing a left and a right. And that's just bothering me. I'm sorry, hang on a second. I just want to get rid of this little bit of flashing here that didn't come clean when I cut them with the nippers. There we go. Now these have a 3mm hex at the end, like that, in addition to the threads. So we can tighten that down so it hits the plastic solidly. I'm probably never going to take these out unless I break this A-arm, so I'm going to go ahead and be a little more liberal with the Loctite. And we've got 2 holes here, which it's possible that we might have some droop screws at some point. That'll be interesting to find out. That'd be nice to have that tuning option. So we need some grease. because we were supposed to put some on these two barrels where they insert into the holes. So let's start. Let's make sure we're oriented right. Okay, so these ball ends are going to face outward, so we are oriented to the chassis right there. And we're not going to need any grease in here because those turn nicely on their own. These don't go in all the way. They've got a small hole at one end and a larger hole at the other. So one blue spacer, one silver spacer, one arm, one blue spacer, and the other type of silver spacer. I don't think this is really necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and put a little on because that shaft is not going to rotate. The arm is going to spin on it. Uh-oh, I see what I did. I missed something. I'll take care of it in a minute. Now this has a slight change in thickness there, so we need to make sure we orient this correctly. That fits outward. And we need 3x15s. Where are the 3x15s? There's one. That looks like number 2. Let's just compare these over here. Yep. And we need 2 countersunk screws. I forgot to do those behind those, but that's an easy fix. Okay, let's tighten these down a little more. Everything moves well. Okay, let's go ahead and take these off. Now, I have an idea on how I'm going to do these. those little aluminum pieces are going to act like a clamp. So what I want to do is get a little more, some fresh Loctite on here. And I want to get these on here a decent distance, but not too far. And then I'm going to screw them in as an assembly. See, that'll go in there just nicely. And there's enough thread on the ball and on the inner side. There we go. So just to recap how I'm doing that, I'm kind of eyeballing this so it's on there about 3 millimeters. And then I am taking the stud or the spacer, and I'm using the thin driver to turn the grub screw instead of the ball, and get some fresh Loctite. And then do a final tighten, and that clamps it all together. So we have two nice, smooth swinging arms. So, time to do the rear arms. So let's set those up. Let me trim these. Need two more 3 millimeter spacers. That's 1, 2, and then we need 2 more of those big grub screws. So this can only screw in so far. So we'll screw that in all the way. There we go. Okay, so we've got these odd little pieces here. We're going to need 2 more axles. Let's go ahead and hit these with the reamer real quick. In case of you, some of you don't know, this is a reamer. It's got these little notches cut in it, which have very sharp edges, and the idea is that there's a very specific size, such as 3 millimeter, and you can slide them through it. Sometimes it's tight, and you have to work it around, and every time you push and pull through, you take small amounts of plastic away. In this case, I did it very quick and very gently just to get any like molding flash that was around the edges. These things already move nice and smooth. Just wanted to make sure they were as smooth as can be, and there was nothing left that could bind from the molding process. So we're going to be using these. They're going to plug in like that. I don't know why they didn't use the same thing that they have out front. We don't have any other spacers at the back end here. And I need to prep my pills before I get all of this together. That's these. Let's figure which ones we're going to use. Now they've got us using N2. This is our N sheet, and here are N2. And that's going to give us a little toe out, but it's not giving us any anti-squat. And it's probably a good place to start. Okay, here's all of our tuning options. So if we're doing N2, that means we're doing a little bit of toe, which means the front tires point towards each other, which helps with straight line stability. Now they have something they call negative skid angle and positive skid angle, which is raising or lowering the rear of the swing arm. Let me just give you an up close here. Okay, most people refer to this as anti-squat, where you've got the we're taking our rear swing arms and either tipping it slightly up or slightly down, and that's going to affect power transfer, whether the car wants to squat and accelerate. Let me just read you what they've got here. Changing bushings alters rear lower arm skid angle, which is anti-squat, also influencing roll characteristics when throttle is applied or released. And they've got it in a couple other languages. Raising it is negative skid angle, lowering it is positive skid angle, in the middle is no skid angle. That really doesn't tell us anything. Let me pause the video, and I'm gonna check some of my documentation and get you a more interesting definition on this. Maybe something that'll help a little more. Okay, let's see. Okay, rear toe. Now this is for off-road, so parts of this apply and parts of this are going to be less pertinent. The rear of the car is much different, as toe out is never used. Adding more toe in will add overall rear traction, both in a straight line and during cornering. On the flip side, less toe in will increase steering, since the rear tires will have less traction. Also, the rear suspension and drive shafts will be at less of an angle, which will help on rough sections of the track. So I may not run as much toe as they have, because the tracks that I race on tend to have a lot of turns. I want lots of steering, so I may run that in a neutral position. Okay, I want to show you a little trick. Sometimes I do this on the pistons and shock absorbers, and I'll use a different colored marker depending on the color of plastic. What I've done is I've taken a silver Sharpie and I've just kind of gently gone over the flat surfaces so that I didn't get ink into the hole or into the lines that are cut in there. And this makes it a lot easier to identify the position of the center hole and what the orientation is, what you're going to get out of each of these. You just go like that, and it makes them much easier to read and match one to another, and then orient once you're putting them in. I mean, it's just makes your life easier. And likewise with the with shock pistons, it makes it easier to see whether it's a 6 or a 5 or whatever the hole size is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the N2s that they recommend, but I'm going to tip them up. So I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees, which means that the axle is going to be centered in the pill, and it's going to be up one level. Now, there's potential for 2 levels, and that can be in any direction, and it can be a combination of, like, N5 moves the axle 2 over and 2 up. That gives you the most amount of toe and the most amount of anti-squat, just as an example. So I'm going to do, like I said, 1 anti-squat and no toe, or at least no toe added. I guarantee these are going to have some toe already built into the geometry of the design. So let's see, this needs to face like this with the little holes like that, the cutaways, and these holes here facing up. So that means these need to go like this because they are upside down. So I'm going to flip this over and show you what I'm talking about. So if you are looking at the rear of the car, this being up, this being the ground, this is how it's going to look. And this is just the initial setting I'm going to start with. I might add that toe back in. I might add more anti-squat or remove it. We'll see. This is just where I think I want to start. And once these are dry, I will cut the rest of those off and put them in my parts box. So let's continue. Okay, we got the ball studs. These are probably our lower shock mounts. We need a 3mm by 5.5, a 0.5mm by 5.5, and 2 of those little silver ones, the last 2 we have, which are here. So those are our last. I think these are the 3s. Let me just confirm. Always measure. Just makes your life easier. Okay, so they don't have us putting any grease in there. That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to follow their lead on that. So we have the 3mm spacer, the 0.5mm spacer, and they set a 0.2. Oh, I see those. Okay. They are over here. It's these two little guys that are in a different bag. So I recommend that that B bag, you do what I did and break everything out. And then it's probably a good idea to do this, to put them in separate containers or trays. Get yourself some plastic lids from like Tupperware containers or something, anything that that you can get that's a nice smooth container where you can empty multiple things into them and kind of keep some sorting going on. So oops. I'm going to start with them over here, slide them in together. I think that'll be a little easier. Okay, pair of M310s. Let's see. And I have made another mistake. It's minor. I assumed that we were going to be using a 3mm spacer back here like we have up there. That is not correct. The shape of the arm means it does not need as large a spacer. It is a 1mm spacer. So I just need a 1mm spacer there. Whoa. I actually just split that ball stud. Like, cracked it. I think I have spares. If I don't, I'll have to order. Okay, I got a couple options here. And one of them is to swap out those ball studs for a long ball stud instead of the ball end. If I have the same size, which I'm pretty sure I do. Now, I think 3 Racing and Tamiya use the same size. This is my Euro Truck box. Okay, let's start by measuring these. And it also should tell me, but it really doesn't. It just says 2 NB11s. Okay, those are like 4 3/4 or 5s, depending on whether this is measuring correctly. Okay, that's the same size. So I can take a couple of these, which are actually have a nice coating on them. Those are the same size. And with a spacer, they are going to go all the way into that aluminum, but not overboard. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, I've decided to swap. I'm going to use some of these, and it's actually a better solution because they're lighter. That steel grub screw, by comparisons, is pretty heavy, and I'm going to use a 1/2 millimeter spacer, and that is going to put those right where the other ones would be. The difference being that these are a little longer, and I'm almost thinking about swapping another pair of these for the front. It reduces unsprung weight by a teeny bit, but the real nice part is the coating on these. I think I'm just going to do this. This is going to be my stock class car. When I build the modified class, which I will also show you that build, even though it's going to be very similar, I'm going to be doing a lot of little extras. For example, I'm going to be using aluminum hardware instead of the steel. I'll probably take the steel, at least 1 or 2 screws, and I'll pre-thread all the holes in the chassis using an electric screwdriver to drive the threads, and get a nice coarse threading going. And then I can use the aluminum hardware and shed some weight from the overall package. I'm also going to be swapping out these fiberglass pieces for some carbon fiber ones that I got, and there's a handful of right here. And of course, being the modified class, it's going to have a faster motor, and that'll be a sensored brushed motor instead of an unbrushed, so, or brushless. There we go. I'm glad I made that mistake, because it caused me to make another mistake, breaking the ball joint. I didn't like the way those grub screws were not really giving me the fit that I needed, because there's no hole on the opposite side here for that grub screw to go into, and I was running into the end of the threads in here, because only about half of this is threaded, and if you try to force it beyond that point, as you saw, it literally splits the ball right down the side, and that ruins it. It's useless. So because that thing failed, it caused me to try to find a replacement, and I realized that I could just use a ball stud that is all aluminum, not have to use this big steel grub screw, and then, I'm not sure if this is steel or aluminum, but not have to use this piece either, and just a little spacer, and not have that grub screw, you know, trying to force its way into the plastic here. It's just a better fit all the way around. So now it's time to start on the front damper stay.